Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the start line, the very first episode of After the Shift Ends. It is an honor to have you here wherever you're listening from. And if you're here, it means the shift is over. Hear the word that I say in the letters that make it up, over. O-V-E-R. Or at the very least, you've just survived it. Maybe you're on your way home. Maybe you finally got out of those scrubs. Maybe you're sitting on the couch turning this on with a hot bowl of ramen. That sounds magnificent right now. Anyways, this is a space for nurses and healthcare professionals of all kinds to pause, to reflect, and to reset with no pressure, absolutely no judgment. There's no metrics, there's no productivity scores. And there's absolutely, thank God, no management. I know. You night shift people aren't used to that. But us day shift people, man, management, jeez. We're just real people after real shifts. Now, I'm Luke, your host. I'm chronically caffeine dependent. I have a Voodoo Grape Monster Juice here, which is just such an interesting flavor here with me at my desk. And I've spent the last 5 years in the healthcare industry as a patient care tech. I've since earned my LPN. I've been an LPN now for 2 years. And God bless me, I'm back in the thick of it as an RN student. Full-time, by the way. And like you, I've learned something acutely along the way. We care for strangers, complete strangers. We walk into rooms and meet people on the worst day of their lives. We hold hands. We give meds, we advocate, and we explain the same thing for the 5th time. And you want to know why? Because it matters. And then we clock out. And somehow we're expected to just leave it all at the door. This podcast exists because that's not how it works. We're here to talk about burnout and balance, the stories we carry, the weight that follow us from shift to shift, to humanity behind the scrubs. Some episodes will be conversations, some will be reflections, sometimes we'll have guests on. All of them will be honest. Now, let's let that noise fade out for a bit. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You just have to be here. You just have to show up. You don't have to be strong. The intro music is over, and it's time to be peace and quiet and let me yap at you through this microphone. Let's get started. And yap to you I shall do starting right now. And I want to start with introducing who I am, because who am I? I am this random guy that you saw on the internet, or I guess listened to on the internet, wherever that is, who's just yapping at me through a microphone, and who I'm going to listen to for the next 30 minutes. Who is this guy? What's he all about? What's his experience? What has he done in healthcare? Well, we'll start here. My name is Luke. I have been in the healthcare industry for 5 years. I'm 28 years old. I am currently practicing as a licensed practical nurse. Yes, the N in LPN, or LVN if you're in Texas or other states that call it LVN, stands for nurse. And God bless me, I am back as a full-time RN student, which is just magical. And I started in the healthcare industry, again, 5 years ago, on an inpatient cardiovascular floor at my local hospital. And the hospital that I work at is really a heart and stroke center. It's really cardiac and stroke. It's really all they do. There's no trauma stuff that they do. There's no pediatric stuff they do. It's really that and some orthopedic stuff and some cancer stuff. Anyways, and I started the year, and I was a patient care tech for 3.5 years, and which was amazing. And I fell in love with the industry. I'm like, this is really what I want to do. Maybe even full time. You're probably like, full time? Isn't this full time now? And I'll explain that in a second. Then after 3.5 years of that, I moved to being an anesthesia tech in the cardiovascular OR, which was just an incredible experience. But I did learn that I'm not an OR dude. I loved the vendor lunches that they'd bring us every Tuesday, but I did not like the OR life. I'm a people person. I like talking to people, and it's really hard to talk to people who are asleep getting open heart surgery. It's kind of awkward. It's really a one-sided conversation. Now, during that time as an anesthesia tech, there was an opportunity from my hospital to go back and full ride at a local college, get my LPN, which I thought, hey, I don't really know what I want to do in this industry yet. It's a year of my time, and then I'll become a licensed practical nurse. And I saw no issue with that. I love the patient care tech role, which, was only an extension of, or I guess was incorporated by what the LPN role did. It was really caring and passing meds. In the state that I practice in, there's no assessment. I don't think any LPNs or LVNs anywhere in the country, in the United States, do assessments. But anyways, I digress. So I said, why not? Let's do that. So I went to school. I got my LPN. I started practicing, and I've been an LPN for about 2 years. And that has been a blessing. That has been such a shift in, this is kind of like what I think I want to do, to this is what I want to do. So then funny little old me decided to re-enroll and get my RN. It's just an associate's for now, but in my state that I practice in, if you get your RN and you haven't been grandfathered into this, you have to go back and get your bachelor's within 10 years. Which, it is what it is. A lot of the hospitals around here do pay for it, so that's great. But I will be eventually getting my bachelor's too, by law, which is just exciting. So, I mentioned something earlier, which is, this is something that I didn't want to, maybe that I do full time. And that's true, because at the time, especially when I started, I owned an IT company. I still do. It's called One Byte Technologies. It's a managed service provider in the capital region here. And we do desktop support. We do some cybersecurity stuff. We do some AI readiness and AI, I guess, augmentation with companies, with SMBs. And you're probably asking yourself now, like, how did you get, what? You're an IT guy and you're also a nurse. And fun fact, I'm also a volunteer firefighter. So I have like 3 different roles that I do every day. I have 3 different personalities. It's kind of fun. I don't have to get meds for it either, which is great. Anyways, so yeah. So I started when I was 15 in the IT world at my uncle's two-way radio communication store. And I fell in love with fixing stuff, fixing people's stuff. I loved helping them fix their electronics that are broken. And I mean, this was just two-way radio communication devices. So literally just the radios that you see like a law enforcement or first responding, or for any first responders, construction, stuff like that. And I was the kid that would take my mom's completely perfectly fine and in good working order Sony camera and take it apart when she wasn't home, and then incorrectly put it back together to the point where it's not even really a camera or something that you could recognize as a camera anymore, and explaining to her mom, listen, I dropped it. I'm sorry, and that's not what happened. Sorry, Mom. And I'd take apart the remotes. I would, mess with the TV. I would take apart laptops and break them. That was the kid that I was. I was a kid that was so interested in that stuff. And I turned that passion for electronics into a full-blown career. And I was in the IT industry solely as an IT guy until I was 23 years old. And when I was 23, well, I think I was 22 at the time, and this was March of 2021. So as the first wave of that pandemic kind of ended, and there was kind of that second wave with the UK variant and all those other variants that were popping up. This is also the time that kind of remdesivir started kind of coming around. And I think it's also the time when the vaccine really started to be a thing, at least for the high-risk pool of people. And as a guy who was scared of his own pulse and had a that's not even a word, a horrific fear of the movie Contagion, where there's a global virus or bacteria that gets out and it kills most of the population, that was a huge fear of mine. I was like, oh my God. So now you have this pandemic that's going on with this virus that's killing a lot of people, and That scared the ever-living bejesus out of me. And then here I am contracting it. And I'll tell that story in a different episode. But essentially, I wound up in the hospital, hypoxic. I think my saturation was at 78%. At home, they did the portable oxygen probe, and my primary care provider said, "Yeah, it's time to go to the hospital. Call an ambulance. Get that guy somewhere." I mean, I was confused, and not the point. We'll get to that story at another time. And I had bilateral pneumonia. I received remdesivir. I was inpatient for about a week. I was on as high as 6 liters, which isn't a whole lot now in terms of oxygen demand. Yeah. And the people, again, keep in mind I was an IT guy at the time. The people that took care of me, the nurses, the doctors, the one patient care tech guy, I remember. I think there was another one, but I didn't really see much of her because they were on nights. The PTOT, the RT, the speech. I don't know why speech saw me. I don't remember why. And who else saw me? Nutrition, the food service workers, the EVS person that would come in literally every day and mop the floor and literally wipe down every surface. She was incredible. They inspired me. I was watching them do all this stuff, and when I got the word that I was going home, and I kind of was emotional about it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't know full time, but this is what I want to do. I want to take care of people like they took care of me. I want to make an impact on a patient like they did with me. That's where my story of getting into healthcare came from. And I had a long history of family members having cardiac issues. My grandfather died from liver cancer. My grandmother died from her 6th heart attack. My dad had a heart attack when he was 45. And, so when I looked to start at the hospital, I wanted to start in cardiology because that was the area that interested me the most, especially with all the family history. So I applied, and my buddy at the time had convinced me, after I was out of the hospital, I did some rehab. I went home on a portable oxygen machine. I forgot which model it was, but it was the one that just basically filtered air and shoved it into your nose. And I went home on 4 liters of that. It took me a month and a half to get off of it, and I had an inhaler. Not the point. We'll get to that story another day. And he worked at another local hospital, and he said, "Hey, man, come work with me." I was like, done. That sounds awesome. Now, the local hospitals, these two in the area that the one that I now work at, the one that my buddy worked at, are under the same healthcare group. And the career page was basically the same. And there were floors on, they had effectively the same name. So when I went to apply, I applied to the wrong hospital, but the right floor. And I remember telling my friend, I was like, "Hey, man, I applied. Can you reach out to the manager, see, if, it was cool to, come in, is it a problem that I work with you?" Yeah, we got into a whole discussion about that. And he goes, "Hey, my manager didn't see your application. Are you sure you put it in under the right floor?" I was like, "Yeah, it's this floor." And he goes, That's at the other hospital." I was like, "Oh my God, the manager from that floor just called me. He offered me an interview. What should I do?" He's like, "Listen, just take it. I'll transfer." I was like, "All right, cool." So I ended up meeting this amazing human being, and I'm going to not give his name out, but he was an amazing manager, probably the best manager I think I've ever had in my life. And I had applied to work there. He gave me an interview over the phone, and then another person reached out to me, and then I had delayed starting because my dad had gotten sick again. He'd gotten pancreatitis. He was in the hospital. They gave him some antibiotic he was allergic to. He almost died. Not the point. And he's fine now. And I was like, "Listen, I'm going to let's say his name's Dave." I'm like, "Listen, Dave, I want to start there, but I got all this stuff going on." He's like, "Listen, no big deal. I get it. Give me 2 weeks. Start, get trained, and then we'll give you some time off. I was like, okay. So later that week, I started on the floor, and I had already gone through the hospital training that they did. So this week, I started on the floor, and I met this amazing woman. And again, I think let's just name her, I don't know, Angelica. I don't know why I picked Angelica. It's not even close to her real name. Not the point. And I met this lady. She was a patient care tech. She was there to train me the first day because the day that the guy that I was supposed to start with, let's call him John. I was supposed to start with John, and I ended up starting with Angelica the first day. And the first day on the floor was kind of a shell shock to me because, again, remember, I was an IT guy. I was scared of my own pulse. I just got COVID. So there's a lot going on in my head. So I was like, this is ambitious. And I was telling Angelica, so I was like, she's like, what you're about. And the first day on that floor was probably the funnest, best work day I've ever had. And I say that both in a medically interesting way and, again, as a guy who came from the IT industry and seeing this side of, how people live, what was eye-opening. It was amazing. It was unfortunate. There was 2 rapid responses on our floor that day with the same guy. He just kept standing up and passing out. And Angelica guided me through it. I mean, we went through all our morning vitals. We went through this rapid response. We went to lunch. We did all this stuff. And she was amazing. She's a good friend of mine now. And then the next day, they started me on 3 12s in a row, which is pretty freaking brutal if you've never done them. And to do them on your first day, and you're this chubby little IT guy, was a lot. And the second day, I met this guy named, we'll call him John. And I met John, and he was the most positive, upbeat, amazing human being you would have ever met. And everyone loved this guy, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And he made me and Angelica fall absolutely head over heels in love with this industry. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Long story short, these 2 individuals are now good friends of mine, and he is now a full practicing RN. She works as a dental assistant just because it's, she likes that a lot more and it's closer to home. And these 2 individuals and a few of the other nurses that I met, some amazing, wicked. I mean, I came on during the golden age of this unit where everyone was so incredible and experienced. Every person made me fall in love with this industry and inspired me, and I owe it all to them. And the people that took care of me in the hospital, it doesn't sound like a lot, but again, as a chubby IT guy at the time, this was eye-opening. This was revolutionary in my eyes to go, whoa, this is what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do in this industry, but this is what I want to do. And for a long time, for a year or 2, I debated, do I want to be a nurse? I was really interested in respiratory therapy at the time. I had a small interest in PT and OT, but that kind of confused me, and then it became a doctorate. And finances at the time for me were, tight because I had my own company that I was running, and I was living pretty much off of, patient care tech salary, which isn't a lot. And those dudes and dudettes need more money. I'm going to say that out loud. Patient care tech, CNAs, any of those nursing support roles, they need more money, man. You guys got to pay them more. I'm just saying. Anyways, I digress. The point of this story was to introduce, who I am, what my experience has been so far. What have I done? What have I seen? How did I get into the healthcare industry? And again, I'll talk more about that COVID-19 story in another episode, because I think it's really interesting being someone who, and again, I'm talking from my perspective, being someone, again, who is scared of his own pulse, who was scared of this pandemic, doing a complete 180, doing a complete 720. I spun around like 4 times. and going, I want to be in the healthcare industry now. And here I am. So that's a little bit about me and who I am, and we'll talk more about that. And I think we're going to have these two people on at some point. I hope they show interest. We'll see if they show interest. I would love to have them on. They're amazing, quality people. They're just people you want in your circle. Now, the second part, the last part of this podcast, enough of me yapping about who I am and what I've experienced. That's getting old now. Let me start with something that most people outside the healthcare industry will never really fully understand, and that's dedicating our lives to complete strangers. This is what I really want to talk about. This is really what I want the first episode of After the Shift Ends to really be, is talking about caring for people we just met. These aren't acquaintances. They're not coworkers. They're not friends. They're not family. They're strangers. By 7:30 in the morning, or I guess 7:30 in the evening, whenever you come on shift, you know what they look like head to toe. Their skin, if you're doing skin assessments, I hope you are. Their full medical history, what meds they take, maybe their psych history, their family history. You know so much about these people by like 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. And then you take care of these people. We walk into a room, we scan a wristband, and suddenly that person is legally our responsibility. Their pain, ours to manage. Their fear, ours to rectify and steady. Their dignity is ours to protect. Their privacy is critical. And we don't ask first if they're easy to love, or, we don't ask if they're polite. We don't ask if they've, voted to like us or think like us or live like us. They come from different cultures, different religious backgrounds, maybe completely different countries. And we just care. That's the part people, I think, miss a lot of the time, or maybe even forget, that we care. We're in this industry to care. Healthcare isn't just skills. It isn't just med passes or procedures or charting or productivity scores or whatever nursing administration wants you to think it needs to be. And my cat is now meowing to go outside. We'll ignore him for a second. It's choosing over and over again to give a piece of yourself to someone who might never see you again. The tech who answers the call light for the 10th time, the nurse who catches that subtle change before it becomes a code, respiratory, adjusting oxygen at 2 in the morning, or their CPAP or their BiPAP, environmental services, cleaning a room so the next patient is safe, the provider making the call that carries weight long after the shift ends. Different roles, same decision. I will care. I'm here to care today, and not halfway. We commit to trying to make someone better, physically, medically better, in whatever way that looks like in that moment. Again, physically, emotionally, medically, spiritually, whatever way that is. And that's not a small thing. That's a life devoted to strangers. And the truth is, that kind of work changes you. It rocks you to your core. You carry that with you long after the shift ends. So you get that? It's kind of in the whole meat and potatoes of our podcast here, is that specific thing. Anyways, you can't repeatedly walk into, vulnerability and not be shaped by it. You can't, see milestones in people's lives. It's some people that you don't get to say goodbye to in the same shift. You don't go from walking out of doing CPR on someone to getting yelled at by your patient in the next room because you didn't get them ice in time. Or they wanted ice so badly, they added a cup of apple juice that they can't have because their blood sugar is 600. So if you've ever wondered why this job feels heavy at times, it's because it matters. And you matter for choosing to carry it. It's not easy. This is a world, an industry. Again, I came from the IT world. This is an industry like no other that puts so much on you day in and day out, devoting yourself to people you just met. And there's, the whole transference, countertransference thing that you kind of hear about patients, projecting themselves and their loved ones onto you and vice versa. It's hard not to in that kind of industry. That kind of relationship with someone who, again, you know everything about, they might not know everything about you. They probably don't. They might not even know your last name because you have it taped up. But you matter. That's the meat and the potatoes of this episode, is you matter, and you matter for caring for people who you just met who are complete strangers. And they might not be easy to take care of either. Let's also have that conversation. There are some people who don't want to be cared for, who want to show up to the hospital, get their Lasix, they don't want any other meds, and then they leave. They just want to get the water that they have in their legs they know is from their heart failure, and they just want their Lasix and they just want to leave. That can be tough because the whole job is caring for people, getting them better, and we know by evidence-based practice that this is what we should probably do to get you probably better. It's just tough. People want medical care, but not medical advice. I think it's something that that Dr. Robbie said so well, is these people, sometimes they just want the meds. They don't want the advice. Hey, you should probably take your Lasix so you can avoid getting edema in your legs and not being able to walk. Well, I don't like peeing. Well, neither do I, man. But I also like you living. You know what I mean? So it's tough. It's a tough industry, and it's a tough world to be in an industry that, especially as of recently, has been plagued by misinformation and Dr. Google. People who are sitting there Googling everything about their condition that, is probably not happening. I had a patient once, again, as an LPN, it's not my job to assess or diagnose or do anything like that, plan of cares. But they were talking to me, and they were saying, hey, I have heart failure. What if I get flash pulmonary edema? And I'm like, where did you learn that term from? She's like, oh, well, I was reading about my condition, and I'm like, well, let me go get your RN. They could do your primary education. See what I did there? I swooped that in and let them talk to you about it. But there's people who associate one thing with another, or they take a supplement and it doesn't really do anything. Or, oh, I love drinking lemon water because it gives my kidneys, an extra boost. And you're like, what? But I want to remind you acutely in these last few minutes of this podcast that it's important to remember that you care. You got in this industry because you care. People are wacky. People are crazy. But you care about them. What they are, who they choose to be, even if they're throwing your full urinal at you. Remind yourself in those moments that you care. I know that might be tough. When you got pee all over you, the guy, whatever they're doing. You care. You're here to care for them. We care. You've devoted your life to caring. Again, that's not a small thing. That's a life devoted to strangers. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. The truth is that kind of work changes you. You can't repeatedly walk into that vulnerability and not be shaped by it. It really is pretty heavy. And I'm going to be the first person to thank you for doing the work that you do. Again, whatever role you serve in healthcare. And I can name all of them. And there's a lot. All of us, outpatient, inpatient, specialty, private practice, wherever, we're all here to care. Keep reminding yourself that. I know it's tough. Keep reminding yourself that. Well, everybody, thank you for attending the very first episode of After the Shift Ends. The next episodes that we have coming up, I think, are going to be awesome. We're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about balance. And we're here to reflect and to reset. I want to keep that in mind. This is a place where we regroup. We talk about the things that we go through every day. Ladies and gentlemen, After the Shift Ends streams every Sunday on your favorite podcast platforms. And again, I'm going to say one more time, Thank you for caring. We will see you when you clock out.